I'm calling to order this roundtable. This is a public roundtable of the Committee on Public Safety and the Judiciary. I'm Phil Mendelson, an at-large member of the Council and Chair of the Committee on Public Safety and the Judiciary. This is a roundtable because, although it looks like and feels like a public hearing, our notice for this hearing was less than the 15 days that's required by our rules. But I wanted to have this hearing in order to give an opportunity for the community, and more particularly relatives, who were affected by the horrific shootings on March 30th, 2010, to give the community and family, other relatives, the opportunity to speak and have their voices heard. The notice that we issued says the purpose of this roundtable is to hear testimony from family and friends of the victims, as well as the public, regarding the recent mass shooting on March 30th, 2010 on South Capitol Street that killed or wounded 9 people. This roundtable will also contemplate strategies to address this violence or prevent similar retaliatory incidents in the future. We do not have any structure for this hearing. That is, we don't have a bill that underlies this, because I am interested, if there are suggestions on what we could be doing, we as a city or we as a government. I want this to be a forum for those suggestions. I expect that this hearing may be difficult for some, and that's understandable. And if there is a desire and a need, I will certainly look at having a subsequent hearing in the community itself. The logistics for that are a little bit difficult, because if it is a formal hearing, then the support staff for the council has to come out. We have to find a facility that can be amplified. There has to, of course, be adequate notice and so forth. But I am open to that if there is a feeling that in the community that that's needed. When witnesses are called forward, I'm going to call 3 at a time. And we have a clock, and the witnesses will be on a 4-minute clock. There'll be a chime or some sort of noise at the end of 4 minutes. And I would ask that witnesses try to conclude their testimony. Again, I recognize that for some it's very important what they have to say, and we will hear it. There is a record in this matter, and that is the testimony we receive and any additional comments that we receive. And the record will be open for 2 weeks. That is, it will close at 5:00 p.m. on Monday, May 3rd, 2010. I'm going to turn to my colleague, Councilmember Marion Berry from Ward 8, if you have an opening statement.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. Let me thank you immensely for calling us here. You and I have talked frequently about what we could do before and after these kinds of tragic situations happen. Let me also apologize. I can't stay very, very long. Finance Jones and the Cummings Heights community is doing something that should have been done 20 years ago. We're going to break ground for the renovation of the Cummings High School, which has been vacant for some 25 years, at about 10:30. And it's a great addition to our communities. It's at Alabama, right near Martha King. And so that's what I have to do. Let me welcome all of the witnesses who are here, and to thank all of the community workers and others, and this Ward 8 community who has risen to the occasion during this situation. Are there any parents here of young people who were killed or injured? Good to see you all. I have talked to all of the family members. I remember sitting 2 or 3 weeks ago, and Shelley's Jones' apartment on Livingston Road, talking through some things, and etc. Let me say that I said this before, and I say it again. Let me paint a picture, and I talked to Mr. Mendelson about this. What happens? 4 people get killed on South Capitol Street, 5 get injured, 15, 20 police cars show up, 3 or 4 ambulances show up, the media there in large numbers, politicians show up, community outraged, vigils being held, funerals are held, and then everybody go home. Is that right? We have to break that cycle. And we in Ward 8 Mr. Minister, are determined to break that cycle. We're going to make the elimination of violence zero. We're going to make murder zero, zero murders. They just did it last month, you know, Ron, in Newark. Now, one murder happened last month. That'll be added to. You know, it's good to reduce murders, but if one murder happens, it's too much, isn't it? And so we ought to say no more murders, zero violence. But we can't just say that. We got to provide massive amount of jobs to these young people. Massive amount of jobs to these young people, Mr. Chairman. I live at 4th and Orange, and I was coming back down from Raleigh, North Carolina, where we had our reunion of our Student Nonviolent Coordinating Committee. And there were about 10 or 15 guys who hang around 4th and Orange and Oakwood and Newcomb and 2nd Street. And there were about 7 of them. And Ron know how this works. One guy who I don't know, he said, "Hey, Mr. Barry, let me hold 5 ones." I said, "What do you mean let you hold 5 ones?" "Well, let me hold 5 ones." I said, "Let me hold 5 ones." You know, we talk like that. But as it turned out, all 6 of them did not have a job. They were 18 and 19 years of age. They didn't have a job. And this administration has been awful in providing jobs to adults. So, Mr. Chairman, I would hope that you would work with Mr. Brown and work with all of us. Let's put together a comprehensive job training program. I believe in my heart there are 700,000 jobs in this city. 700,000. The problem, Mr. Chairman, they're in the wrong place. Only 30% of them are held by D.C. residents. The D.C. government is equally guilty. 55% of our employees don't live in the city. We're suffering from a dollar flight. We in Ward 8 don't have much shopping we can do, right? We don't have any entertainment, no theaters. We don't have anything. But we're not going to just bemoan the fact we don't. We're going to change the landscape, aren't we, of Ward 8. And so to your parents and relatives who've had people, we certainly have our prayers and condolences. They're all right, but prayers and condolences is not enough right now, isn't it? We need some action. And so I just want to come out and express that, Mr. Chairman. You and I talked a long time about it, what we can do about the situation. It's not just the police department's problem alone. Chief Lanier said we need all the kind of services. We got a failing school system in Ward 8. Even though Cheryl Reed taunts these test scores, we don't see them in Ward 8. We don't see parent involvement in Ward 8. We don't see the kind of things that makes us a community. And so I'm starting a new drive, and I'm going to say in general, I'm going to start pushing for the liberation and unification of Ward 8 people. Liberate us from fear, from cancer, from diabetes, and all those kind of things. So thanks, Mr. Chairman. I was a little bit long, but I wanted to just express that. And I really appreciate your leadership in this and other areas. So I leave is because, one, I'm a victim of law of physics. One body can't be in 2 places at the same time. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Mr. Berry. And I appreciate your remarks. Let's turn to the first several witnesses. Is Ron Moten here? I see him. Wahar Abraham, is he here? Okay. Nardine Jeffries, if you would come forward. Patricia Jeffries. Is Patricia Jeffries here? Okay. Mr. Moten, I think you're lead off.
First, for these gloves is a symbol of what I believe a lot of people in this building have blood on their hands. Because for the last 5 years, we testified about the same things over and over again. And it's just been a political game.
Is your microphone on?
I say it again, I first come here today with with these gloves on my hands to symbolize the blood that I believe that people in this building have on their hands because they have not listened to the parents such as Ms. Jeffries, to the organizations who come down here and advocated to stop this madness in our community. I'm here giving testimony because I have come to the sad conclusion that some of the council members and some of the administration simply don't care about our children. It is only about the politics of what sounds right, but not what is really in the best interest of our youth and citizens. I have seen Brenda Donald Walker and Neil Albert put initiatives in place that have worked in the past. Presently, I have seen Jim Graham, Kwame Brown, Mayor Fenton, and others put some initiatives in place, but their work, then political tricks, hate, greed, jealousy, and misdirection of funds destroyed all the good works. As I reflect of Marcel Murd, who was killed during the Anthony Williams tenure as mayor, he was a youth committed to DYS. And despite our warnings and pleas from his family and us to hold him at the agency for his safety and the community's safety, he was released without proper notification, only to be found shot dead shortly after. At the age of 15, 4 murders had been linked to his young life. People told me to be quiet for the fear that I would ruin the reform efforts. I have spoken and interviewed numerous DYS youth who expressed their unwillingness to navigate the community without being strapped. Youth have increasingly become more and more skeptical about traveling throughout the city. This should not be the norm. Let's reflect further. The murder of Sydney, who was murdered in Benning Terrace while holding a baby in her arms. I think about Sydney even more because of the recent Bellevue retreat. It was confirmed that William, who was killed, and Jabbar, who was her other brother, were also victims of this massacre. This reminds me of 1991 when my brother was kidnapped, robbed, and killed. His death was treated just as another number. Just another number is turning into numbers. I walked away from a DYS contract in which expectations was in participation with the YAP model, another new model, in order to receive funds. It was lucrative, and even though people said it was crazy to walk away, I knew this model would be ineffective and would not work for our city. Within a month of its implementation of the YAP model, 13 youth were killed in this model, which was a travesty. Nobody really talked about it. We came down here and testified about that as well. The Rebuild the Village Triangle 1 model was created and implemented by the Peace of Halls as a result of watching and learning from numerous mistakes that left blood of our youth on the streets. In the 3 to 4 years this model has been implemented, no one referred via DYS has been killed or committed a murder while under this model. And we're talking about the most violent youth, but people in this city refuse to even look and analyze the model. Why? Politics. Within the last 2 years, good things have happened, such as MPD closing 75% of all homicide cases, which is great, but still does not stop the homicides from reoccurring. We have to deal with the education and other social economic issues that cause homicides. Organizations and council members have stood with the mayor in strong efforts to reduce crime and homicides, which definitely has happened in some cases. But I'll sum it up. But basically what I'm saying is there are things that have worked in the past. It's more easy for our children to get AK-47s than it is to get in college right now. When we took the children on a retreat from the Bellevue community, the majority of the young men were dropouts. The majority of them were substance abuse, had substance abuse problems, and the most of them needed jobs, like Marion Burns said. And the problem, like you said, Marion, is not that the jobs are not there. And I'll give you a prime example. We just started development on 1300 Congress Place. And one of the developers that you all have given over $300 million worth of money and subsidies to do work in our communities, William C. Smith, when the young people from that community went over there to try to get jobs, they looked at them like they were crazy. They went asking for work. They looked at them like they were crazy. They came to our site and we hired 12 of them. So it's not just when people talking about the mayor and this and that. These are people that the council and the mayor are approving. So everybody needs to take blame for this. And these people will not hire our children. And then when they come and do massacres like this, we want to blame them for everything. But we got to stop this madness, and we need to come together, the mayor and the council, and address this foolishness together, because it's not our children, it's the adults.
I'm going to turn to Ms. Jeffries, but before I do, our rules don't permit applause during testimony, and I understand the emotions, but I would ask that you refrain from applause or any other outburst. Ms. Jeffries? Okay.
Good morning, Councilman, council members.
Pull the microphone closer to you.
Okay. Good morning, Councilman.
Good morning.
And committee members. My name is Patricia Jeffries. I am the grandmother of Rochelle Jones, her nana. My only granddaughter was paying her respects to the family of Jordan Howe, another victim of senseless violence, when she was gunned down in the mass drive-by shooting on March 30th. The driver involved in the drive-by shooting was a 14-year-old who has been charged as a juvenile. Change the laws now so that anyone commits a felony will be charged as an adult. I'm here today asking that you put forth a bill to end the revolving door policy of the D.C. courts. Criminals look at the judicial system as a joke. Repeated offenders, young and old, need to know that D.C. is willing to implement tough penalties, such as a law that states 3 strikes equal life. That may sound harsh, but we need to have harsh penalties because there's nothing that takes away the pain of losing your family members to violence because they know that they can get away with it with a slap on the wrist, plea bargain, and be out before the ink dry to victimize not only my family, but all of us. This is not Ward 8's problem, it's DC's problem. All the citizens want to feel safe. All the citizens of DC wants to know that they can go out about their daily work and business without having to be gunned down with AK-47s. My granddaughter was doing what we taught her to do. Be respectful. She went to that repast to show respect to the family of another young victim of senseless street violence because these criminals know they can do what they want and come out in a couple of years or a couple of months to do it all over again. I'm just asking and pleading that you get some tough penalties on the books and enforce them. If it means hiring more people, hire them. If it means raising taxes, raise them. I'm sure none of the citizens in D.C. would have a problem with a dollar tax if they knew it was going to police and things to stop the violence. I thank you for your time, and please help us so nobody else have to feel this pain. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Jeffries. Ms. Jeffries?
How many do I take? 15. Okay. Yeah.
No problem. You gonna show that to the camera? Keep one and show it to the camera.
Yeah, I'll take that.
You really need to, the reason you should sit at the table because you see the camera won't pick this up.
Okay.
Yeah.
Leave the extra ones up there.
She got one here.
Yeah, we got it.
You have one for yourself?
I want you to show those pictures to the camera. The camera is right in front of
Before I begin, like I said, I would like to show a picture of Brichelle Tasha Jones before repeat offenders were allowed to roam the streets and prey on innocent victims. This is Brichelle Jones now.
My name is Nardine Ave Jeffries. I'm the mother of Brechelle Jones, the beautiful 16-year-old young lady that was massacred on March 30th on South Capitol Street. The last time I got to comb my daughter's beautiful head of hair was on April 8th, 2010, as I stood over her lilac casket to prepare her for her funeral service the following morning. I will not see her beautiful smile again. I will not hear her sweet high-pitched voice. Hold her, watch her continue to grow into the successful, positive woman that she had planned for herself as well as the rest of the family. The event that occurred was senseless and reckless. The individuals who committed such a heinous crime should have never been released to the general population and had the city of Washington, D.C. and the federal government done their jobs efficiently, Brechelle Jones and the other victims of this slaughter would still be alive and uninjured. What happened that day was so senseless, so unnecessary, so violent, and just as importantly, so preventable. Yes, I did say preventable. None of the four violent repeat offenders should have been allowed to roam the streets and prey on innocent and unarmed, law-abiding taxpayers, citizens, and young adults. The present laws do not protect its law-abiding citizens, but instead protects the repeat violent offenders. How can a repeat violent offender continue to remain free in society to prey on the lives of well-being of innocent people? How can an individual who is undergone, I can't even speak English, commit a violent crime and not face the judicial system and be charged as an adult for such crimes? What this produces in society is a view and a mentality amongst individuals that there are no consequences to their ignorant, reckless, senseless, cruel, and heinous actions. The laws in the district are way too lenient on violent repeat offenders. Even in baseball, you're only allowed 3 strikes before you're out of the game. Employers will terminate employees with less than 3 strikes. Why is it that the district will allow violent repeat offenders 15, 25 plus offenses before they are locked away? The district cannot continue to use the judicial system as a revolving door of repeat offenders coming in and out the doors of the courts, correction facilities, and juvenile centers. It is critical that the laws are changed to avoid another catastrophe as this from happening. I would like to see the following laws changed to ensure there will never be a massacre like the one that claimed 5 innocent lives. Number 1, the district should implement capital punishment. The district should charge this violent repeat juvenile as an adult who played a very violent role in the massacre of Brechelle Tasha Jones, Devon Boyd, Tavon Nelson, William Jones III, and Jordan Howe. Number 3, the laws need to ensure the punishment fits the crime. The district needs to make the punishments fit the heinous crimes committed and not solely based on charging an individual as a juvenile based on age. The minimum and maximum sentencing laws must be changed to increase terms. Repeat offenders should be charged and sentenced with 20 years and no parole for violent crimes. I feel the previous director of DYRS is held liable for the negligence of running a revolving door system rather than an effective facility that separates true juvenile offenders from barbarians with violent and murderous intentions. And I note there is a difference in a minor that's doing juvenile acts. A juvenile may spray paint walls, may key a car, may break into a home and steal money. and the minor who is caught with weapons assaults citizens, including police officers alike, attacks employees of the juvenile facility in which they are sent to, is not a juvenile. Clumping true juvenile offenders that may have the opportunity to be rehabilitated if they're not forced to share space with very violent repeat offenders who should be placed into a maximum adult prison. I feel the current interim director should be fired immediately for his lack of leadership and capability to ensure violent repeat offenders stay off the streets to continue to murder innocent people. DYRS should be denied all funding until effective staff are put into place to determine true juveniles that can truly be rehabilitated, and offenders that may be minors in age, but their crimes are so heinous they are beyond the capability to rehabilitate and need to shift immediately into maximum adult prisons. The Missouri model does not work on violent offenders. Child and Family Services funding should be suspended until an effective evaluation and investigation can be done to answer the questions why they have not been more involved with juvenile offenders and placing violent repeat offenders into foster homes. After such an investigation is done, safety panels need to be placed to ensure minors are being monitored at school and home. If there is a violent repeat minor, he or she must not be placed anywhere other than the proper maximum facility to protect society. A screening panel needs to be implemented to oversee and review DYRS, their careless and reckless decisions they make that cost the community lives. Their finances need someone to oversee and review so that the juvenile can be reached to get the proper therapy that can be rehabilitated. These are just a few suggestions to revamping the entire failed system in Washington, D.C. And I would like to also address Mr. Mendelson directly as the chair of public safety. I'm not sure exactly how that falls into all of this, but I would assume if you're the chair of public safety, somewhere you are involved with and very knowledgeable of how the system is breaking down and things like this that happen, and not only happened this time, but have happened many times before. I think the only difference in this particular instance is that there were 10 people slaughtered on South Capitol Street and a week before that on Alabama Avenue. But it's well documented in the Washington Post. The chief of police even said on the news that it happens all the time. Things like this, they know that are going to happen. So I'm just trying to figure out what kind of panels you have in place to oversee and actually do public safety, because I don't think anyone in the public feels safe. I don't think they felt safe for a long time. And Mayor Adrian Fenty, Attorney General Peter Nichols, D.C. Councilman Vincent Gray, and D.C. Council members, let's get it together ASAP and change these very outdated and lenient laws. And I have statements from other people who could not attend, and I just would like to, I know I can't read each and every one of theirs, but I have, I think they said for the record I have to state their name. Tamara Jeffries, my sister, the aunt of Brichelle. Lydia Jones, the 10-year-old sister of Brichelle Jones. Kim Birch, the godmother of Brichelle Jones. Patrick Cox, the neighbor who was like the way we were raised. It takes a village to raise one child. Mr. Cox would call me and just let me know things were okay with Brichelle at the house, or maybe Brichelle had a friend over that, he just wanted to make sure everything was okay. And I think that is about all. Oh, no, I'm sorry. That isn't all. Yes, it is. And I had attached an email that my daughter has sent me on February 19th with the reservations for May 15th at 7 p.m. for Fogo de Cheo of Washington, 1101 Pennsylvania Avenue, for a Mother's Day dinner, which I will not have ever again. That's all I have to say.
Thank you, Ms. Jeffries. I admire both of you for your willingness and courage to come here since this tragedy struck so recently. Because my colleague, Mr. Berry, has to leave, I'm going to turn to him first if you have any questions.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. Ron, I think it goes beyond just the blood. I think that even though we in this room and in this city did not actually pull the trigger, we did in fact help pull the trigger by our inactions, by our politics, all these kind of things. So I think that's the case. In terms of what we're going to do, as you very well know, the mayor promised some things. We're going to meet this week with Neil Albert, and we're going to hold him accountable. And one of the things that we need most is some jobs, some money for jobs, and some money for organizations such as yours. You've been in the vineyard for a long time, the Alliance for 19 years, struggling, making ends meet, and that's not fair. Those who do all the work ought to receive enough to do the work. Don't you agree with that? And the problem is that we got people in D.C. government. I looked at a chart the other day. The deputy chief of staff in the state superintendent's office making $140,000. That is just outrageous in terms of the relative speaking about things. So I'll be calling you about how we can get that meeting next couple of days so we can get some action as opposed to
I
talk.
have a question. I'm sorry.
Wait a second.
Okay.
And that's that part of it. Now let me welcome both of the Jeffries here. But see, part of our difficulty is our government structure. I think that the Department of Rehabilitation Services was a complete failure. Chevrolet was a complete failure. But the council can only just do what I just did, criticize, have hearings, etc. It's up to the mayor to fire him because he hired him. I think the interim director is going to be a complete failure unless he changes the way he does business. The other problem we have, I'm not trying to excuse nothing. There are no excuses here. The Department of Rehabilitation Services comes under Human Services. I'm a member of that committee. It does not come under Mr. Menson's committee. So we got these bifurcated committees. There should not be any reason why. I happen to agree with you with the thrust. We need to take the penalties down for 14-year-olds. These guys out here know that you have to be tried as a juvenile. The most they get is up to 21 years of age. They know that. They're not dumb, right, Ron? They're not dumb. And so now I do have a problem with giving a 14-year-old life. I do have a problem with that because that's 50-some years in time. But I am interested in somewhere in between where you get to 15, 20 years in a facility that's going to rehabilitate you. Not thrown in D.C. jail, not thrown in the Bureau of Prisons where you get caught with hardened criminals and you become more criminal than you were when you went in.
Are you saying a 14-year-old you have a problem giving life to who has done what type of crime? Because I feel if you're 14 and you have killed multiple times, I don't care if you're 10 years old. If you take lives, then you need to be put into a facility where you are not able to roam the streets to kill again. That's a serial killer.
Right.
You can't rehabilitate someone who has murderous intentions, and not only intentions, but have acted on it several times.
Jeffries, I said for the first offense. I did not.
Okay, then that's what I asked you. What kind of?
I think if we got somebody that's done 3 or 4 murders and 14 years of age, I have no problem with life in prison. I don't personally. I don't think the majority of the council would agree with that probably, but we ought to advocate that. But we need to also advocate the reform of the Department of Representative Service. It's a mess. It's a revolving door, and Ron knows that. You know, people on the streets that should not be on the streets, that people locked up shouldn't be locked up. And the model that she supposedly used was a complete failure. And so I just pledged myself to work with all of you and work with our chairman, work with Tony Wells, since I'm on that committee, to try to reform these laws quickly, not just talk about them and look at them. What was your question, Mr. Jefferson?
I guess what and maybe you all will get to that at the end of this, but what are the next steps? Do we meet with you all as the entire council? Because I know you all have a lot of different budget hearings going on, so how do we, as the parents, the family members of these slaughtered children, meet with you as the council, Adrian Fenty, and some of the other officials to move forward?
Another thing, I don't have an answer to that. I'm sure the chairman at the end will. I know I have an answer to what we'd like to involve you all in what we're doing with Ron and the other groups. We certainly, that's an immediacy this week of trying to figure out how we programmatically hold the mayor accountable, get some money. And to me, this is not political. There's some people going to say it's political, but it's not political. It's human beings that are there. And so that's how I think we're going to do that. The other thing we can do, everybody in this room ought to get the hearing schedules and or the budget hearings, not just judiciary, but DOS jobs, human services, TCRA, all the things, public works, ought to fill the chambers. I'm going to do all I can to get Ward 8 residents to fill the chamber. And believe me, it does make a difference when you come down here. For some council members, it doesn't. For some council members, it's perfunctory, I'll be honest with you. But for the majority of us, like Mr. Middleton and myself, Mr. Brown, Mr. Coleman Brown, both Browns, Yvette, the chairman, etc., it's not a game, it's for real.
Can I say something to that? One of the other things I want to bring to light is that there was a crime bill that was in front of the council that was turned down that would have addressed a lot of this stuff. The other thing is, with the youth, we had a program where we went inside and worked with children inside of Oak Hill. And one of the things that we were doing with a collaboration of people through the Citywide Coordinating Council on Youth Violence Prevention, we were letting them know what children should not be allowed back in the community. This 14-year-old would not have made it back in the community if we were still going inside of Oak Hill. But they cut us out the model on purpose. Promises were made, and a breakdown came. We were stopping a lot of these children from coming back in the community. That's why the reduction of youth homicides this past year went down in D.C. A lot of those children that should have never made it to the streets were being stopped. It was a collaboration. And because we were not part of the Missouri model, this model did not want to include outsiders from D.C. in the model, because they would have had to make it part of the model when they go and sell it throughout the country and make all this money. You know, so now they can go around the country and say they downsized Oak Hill and they did this perfect thing. And, you know, I love Liz Ryan and all them, but I wish she was here today to see this mother's picture when they come and advocate for this system that's not working. Yes, children are not being molested and whooped down Oak Hill no more, but like she said, now the children are working, whooping the guards and people down there. So what we have to do is get a balance and make this thing work for everybody.
Thank you, Chairman. I have to go back to the Southeast and take care of some business. Thank you again, all of you who have come. I sincerely appreciate it, but just don't stop. I want you at every hearing. I want to see you everywhere down here. Flood the Wilson building. Flood the mayor's office. Sit in at the mayor's office if you have to. Sit in at the council member's office, except mine, because I'm with you. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Perry, and thank you for staying a few extra minutes since you have that other engagement. I have a couple of questions. Maybe I don't have questions, but a couple of comments. First of all, let me just say that if you're angry, you have every right to be angry. Yours is a sacrifice that nobody should have to make. And there's no question but that the individuals who are suspected, who we know committed these crimes, were known as repeat offenders in the community. So you have every right to be angry. And I can't imagine a worse situation. I have a 9-year-old daughter, and I just can't imagine anything worse. But I think what Mr. Berry was saying, and that I feel as well, is just this frustration about where are the cracks in the system. There was a comment about how there ought to be a three strikes law. Well, we have a three strikes law. If a person is convicted 3 times of, I don't think it's just murder, it's certain violent crimes, then they are to be convicted without possibility of release. That is life. I've tried to find out how often that has been prosecuted, and as far as I can tell, it has not been. And the reason is because typically, in order to obtain convictions, U.S. Attorney plea bargains with suspects. And part of the plea bargain is a person may plead to first degree or probably second degree murder, but part of that plea is also that it won't count toward that 3 strikes law. So we have a 3 strikes law, but it isn't used. And we also have, for first degree homicide, a 30-year mandatory minimum. The mandatory minimums are somewhat controversial, but that's on the books, a 30-year mandatory minimum. And I've been trying to get data with regard to how often a person who is arrested for murder is actually convicted of first-degree homicide with a 30-year mandatory minimum. And again, it's difficult to get the data. I'm not sure that I have anything that's accurate with regard to the last several years, but typically there's a plea. And the plea may be for an offense, for a sentence that's greater than second degree, but is not the first degree with the mandatory minimum. It's the exception that that the mandatory minimum and first degree murder is the sentence. I was looking at the what information I have with regard to the suspects, and they did not have that violent a history. They had a history of repeat offenses, and some of them were worse than others. All of them would have qualified for what the chief calls gun stat, which is 1 or more gun arrests. But it wasn't that every time they were arrested it was for guns. One of the individuals, and I probably should not mention names, his with the exception of one arrest involving guns, all of his arrests were for involved drugs or driving an unregistered car. What I don't have, and that is also an important part of this, are the convictions. It's telling to us when a person has been arrested 10 times or 20 times, but I don't have what the convictions are. I attend the chief's gun stat, which is monthly, and typically what we see are individuals who have been arrested and may be convicted of a gun charge, but most of their arrests don't result in convictions, and that's not because there's a plea bargain. It's because for one reason or another there is not a conviction, that complicates this as well. It's enormously frustrating, and I completely agree with you that there have to be consequences, and that's what's missing here, is that these individuals, particularly the ones who are arrested over and over again, particularly the ones who are arrested and not convicted, they feel like they're beating the system. And they are beating the system until something like this happens. These men will probably never see the streets again, or if they do, they will be very old. But they're only at that point because they beat the system or thought they beat the system over and over again. And then this happens. I was going to ask Mr. Moten one question, and that was, you had mentioned a model
Yes.
UIRS followed, and I should also reiterate, the Department of Youth Rehabilitation Services is not under the jurisdiction of this committee. Juvenile laws are, meaning the juvenile justice system, but the agency itself is not. Mr. Moten?
Yeah, basically what I was saying is, they had the Missouri model. And the problem with the model is they did not include until recently people from the community into the model. So like you were saying, all these children didn't have violent crimes. with the outreach workers, organizations like Peaceaholics, Alliance of Concerned Men, Ceasefire Don't Smoke the Brothers, and all these other grants, ERCPCP, the collaboratives, what they know is the other side of the youth. Like, he might get locked up for a UUV, but people who work in the communities know that he might be shooting people. They might know that somebody's trying to kill him, and that's what's missing from the model. So you release people who get locked up for minor crimes, but we know what's going on. So we get services to these children and put things in place to protect them and the community. So it's more prevention. So when we don't get this prevention, like I said, over and over again, over 20 hearings that Tommy Wells had, that eventually what's going to happen is what happened with this sister's talking about. Now she wants something done. So now all the people who advocated for change and reform, I want to say no, it's not worth doing reform if this is going to happen. It's not worth giving children a chance. So we have to sit back and look at this expeditiously and bring about changes so that people won't stay lock up and throw away the key for our children. And there's nothing that nobody can tell me. If my daughter was slaughtered and I knew that council members took money, over $1 million, that was supposed to go for gang intervention, and gave it to people that swing golf clubs, or took $1 million and gave it to a senior program. So what's going on down here is criminal. It's criminal. Now, one of you has said anything about it, but $1 million was taken that was for gang intervention. We had to lay people off who did interventions in this area, and $1 million was given to friends. Now, I see y'all sit around talking about the man friends all the time. What are y'all going to say about this? What are you going to do about this? This is criminal. You know, it ain't about a lack of money. We got money in this city. It's about the misdirection of funds and the greed and jealousy of people who are successful. That's what's wrong. It's not because we don't have the money. It's what we doing with the money. And then we pick and choose when we want to say something about what's going on with the money. And then we attack people like me who come down here and speak up about what's going on. Y'all don't aid me. Y'all attack me. In fact, I heard some council members were happy that our office was shut down when we done over 500 mediations over the last 6 years. They were applauding that it was shut down. I didn't get a call from you, Mr. Minister, about our office being shut down. You over top of public safety and the Judiciary Committee. But we didn't hear nothing from you. All the lives that we saved, we didn't hear nothing. When this stuff happened, we the ones that got with all the other nonprofits and got raised money for $8,000 to do this trip. And the only people that gave us a penny was Kwame Brown and Marion Berry helped us and Mayor Fenty. That's it. We didn't get no calls from nobody to help us. Nobody. And the retreat that happened, which is part of our model, which you have to do when something like this happens, save lives. Because guess what? The one youth who didn't go on the retreat, the one guy who didn't go on the retreat got caught with 4 guns. And we knew that with 4 funerals in 1 week, it would have been some retaliation. And when we got those children away, they said we needed that. This saved us. But nobody down here understands that, and nobody down here listens to what the collaboratives have been saying, what the nonprofits have been saying, and most importantly, what the parents of slain parents before Ms. Jeffries have been saying over and over and over again. We want this to stop. So what are we going to do now? Are we going to have a few meetings? When the snow is 55 inches on the ground, we didn't say we didn't have the funds for it. We found the money right away because we wanted to function as a normal city. People in Southeast want to function as normal people. Our children should not have to hide when they go outside. They should not have to pick and choose what street they're going to stay outside on. So what are we going to do? And the other thing I'm going to say in close, I guarantee you, if it's found out that teacher who was killed in Silver Spring, that car was found 3 blocks away from where the shooting happened. I guarantee you, because the color of his skin, if it's found that some boys from Carnotaires did that murder, I guarantee you something's going to be done about this. So why does that have to happen? Why can't it be our children that when something happens to them, we do something, not just to lock them up and throw away the key, but prevent it from happening? We got the answers. Y'all just don't listen. I'm tired of the hearings. I'm tired of the rhetoric. When are you all going to listen to people who you know how to do the work?
I want to move to the next witnesses, but let me just say, Mr. Moten, you make a good point about the fact that there's there are facts about these individuals that the community knows that somehow is just missing when the criminal justice system is deciding what to do with these individuals. And we've got to find a way to make that connection. I want to thank each of you for your testimony.
You made a comment about these individuals would have been able to go back on the street based on their nonviolent history. And I've read many articles written recently, and I have a copy of those from the Washington Post that state otherwise. Even on the 14-year-old, he was arrested multiple times for gun charges. So how do you, or where are you getting your information saying that none of them had violent histories or past, and they would have been allowed to go through the system to put them back on the streets? Because that is not the information that the detective on my daughter's case, as well as the rest of the family's case, is being given. That is not the information that the prosecutors are giving me.
I'm not sure what to tell you. I'm looking at one of the individuals here, and
Well, I have a copy of what I pulled offline, and it doesn't say anything about drugs or things that, I mean, there are assault charges, assault with weapons, carjacking. To me, that's violent.
well, I'm looking at one of the individuals here, and as a juvenile, there's one gun offense, one, and that's for carrying a pistol without a license. It's not he wasn't arrested for using it.
Okay, well, that's contradictory to what was told to me by,
Of course, we're talking about 3 or 4 different individuals.
and I'm talking about all 4 of them.
This same individual as an adult, first arrest, no permit, second, simple assault, third, amphetamines, fourth, crack, fifth, marijuana and urinating in public. And his 6th was on March 31st for murder. There's only-
Again, that's just not the information that I have and was shared with me, so that's
But what I
fine.
don't know here is that I don't know if there were convictions for any of these. But in any event, for this individual, the community may know, the chief certainly knew, that this individual was a violent individual, but it's not there in the arrests. My recollection, and some of this is, we have to be careful about how much we discuss publicly, but the one juvenile that you mentioned, my understanding is that there was only one robbery, and I shouldn't say only, because it's pretty shocking. But of all those arrests, it appears that it doesn't appear to be as much of a record about using guns and using guns violently as has been the public discussion.
I hear you, but like I said, the information we have says that the 14-year-old started his criminal activities as early as 9.
Yes.
And there was an assault of a police officer with a weapon.
Well, but that would be, but assault with a dangerous weapon could be kicking. It isn't necessarily using a gun.
Okay, I'm done.
But one thing that needs.
And I'm not trying to.
I understand,
please
but,
understand.
no.
Well, let me also say about this, the one adult I mentioned, what I have tells me that he was a suspect in a murder and a suspect in another crime using a gun. But a suspect, that tells me that the police knew how dangerous he was, even though they didn't have the arrests or the convictions. Again, it goes back to what we're all talking about, which is that we, maybe more you, the community, knows how dangerous some of these folks are, and somehow that's just not translating to the charging decisions by the U.S. Attorney, the prosecution by the U.S. Attorney, and the ultimate disposition of the case in the courts. If we all that's what GunStat's about. I've been at these meetings where the chief is just totally frustrated, and she says, if we don't get this person, meaning the prosecutor, if you don't get this person charged and held, he's either going to go out and commit a murder, or he's going to be the victim of a murder within the next month. You know what I'm talking about,
But
Moten?
I know what you're talking about, but what's missing is if you take all these youth who have been charged with murder, I guarantee you all of them had the same pattern. All of them had the same exact pattern before they committed the murder or were killed. All of them were doing the same crimes. All of them committed the same pattern. And then,
Stealing cars, getting caught with a gun, having drugs.
right,
At the age of
but
14,
at the end of the day, the part that's missing is what the community has to say. The part that's missing is people supporting what work. Mr. Wells, no, we've come down there and testified. Matter of fact, he helped eliminate our program because he said it wasn't something that nobody else was doing. We had over 2.5 years and nobody killed with the most violent youth in Oak Hill. Not saying it was perfect, but nobody killed, and that's not a reason to keep it going, brother. If that's not a reason, I don't know what you here for, because I understand it. It's nothing crazy about me. I know if somebody got something that's working like that, it's the government's job to keep it going. I don't want to hear about, well, this project is we want to compare it. Nobody compared the $1 million that Harry Thomas gave out. There wasn't no competing about that. You ain't say nothing about that. You said one thing publicly, you didn't stop it. The money still went to the street. Senior programs doing gang interventions. No problem with that. Are you serious? Y'all got blood on your hands. Y'all got blood on your hands. Y'all playing these games. Everything down here is political. It ain't about the work we do. It ain't about these parents. Nobody care about them for real. Nobody care. It should have been 10,000 people on South Capitol Street. There was no more than 200 people after 10 people were slaughtered. Every council member should have been there. It should have been nothing about this ain't my ward. Everybody should have been there. 10 people slaughtered, shot down like bowling balls, bowling pins, and only people came there was 51 days late. Man, that's it? Are you serious? And you say you care? You over top of judiciary and public safety, and you weren't there? Come on, man. Listen. I'm not here to critic. We got to come together and make this a priority. It's going to be we had 3 people shot in Trinidad where they gave money to people who don't do the work yesterday. It ain't even got hot yet. 3 people shot down in Trinidad in broad daylight. And we told y'all what was going to happen. It's just a matter of time because everybody who was doing the work over there, you all stop funding them. So when the lives over Trinidad don't mean nothing, we gonna use money for political money, for campaigns, and y'all don't say nothing about it? Y'all don't do nothing about it? Are you serious? That's why I left the Peace of Halls and volunteered. I'm not doing this. Y'all not gonna poverty pimp us under my watch. Y'all not gonna keep on attacking people who come down here and stand up under my watch. I'm a man. And I will die for this, and I will drink muddy water. You can cut the lifeline off, what you think you're doing when you take the money, but you're not cutting me off. I'm an organizer. I know how to get people together. I will shut this building down. I know how to do that.
Not supposed to be any applause. Mr. Wells?
Yes, I'm in the middle of holding a hearing upstairs on the Department of Human Services budget, and had very little communication that this hearing was going to happen, but I did hear that the families were here of the victims. So out of respect and courtesy, I wanted to come down and say, as the chair of the department, or the oversight for the Department of Youth and Rehabilitative Services, that I am very open to looking at changing the system. I'm looking at changing the laws. I know that we've been under a reform movement that it looks at how the youth are treated once they've been incarcerated, and I will work with the community that if we need to look at changing how the agencies communicate with each other. So I know that CSOSA was involved. I know that that MPD was involved, and that it seemed like these agencies did not talk to each other about where youth were going and about who was back in the community, that we can work together on this. I have an oversight hearing that will be at 3 o'clock today on DYRS, and for those that want to come testify on that, I can add you to the list today. And so with that, I just felt it was very important to come down here for the parents and the family members and friends that came down here for the youth that we lost. that I wanted to come down here to acknowledge you, but also to let you know that we'll have a hearing upstairs at 3 on DYRS, but I am in the middle of a budget hearing overseeing Department of Human Services, and so I've stopped that hearing for now to come down to acknowledge you, and then I'll go back up. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Mr. Wells. I want to ask one other question of Ms. Nardine Jeffries and Ms. Patricia Jeffries. Do you think it would help if public safety if we were to repeal our gun control laws? And I ask that because that proposal is in Congress right now. Do you think it would help? I need your microphone.
When you say gun control law, what exactly does
We have a
it
law
mean?
that restricts who can register a gun, requires registration of a gun, requires registration of a gun and restricts who can have it.
Well, that sounds good, but unfortunately, how are the criminals getting these guns? They breaking into people's homes, robbing them, going to gun shows where they don't have to show any kind of ID to buy a gun.
Well, they're breaking
Like I
the
said-
law when they do that now.
Yeah,
But
but
if
the thing is-
Congress repeals that law, they won't be breaking the law when they do that.
What of having laws and then not having any implementations of the penalties? You just said that you have a 3-strike law that very seldom gets implemented. What is the point of having these laws if nobody's going to implement them? If juveniles get caught with guns and they still get a slap on the wrist, what's the point of having the law? Like I said, it's implementing these laws and making sure that they understand that when you get caught with a gun, 9 times out of 10 your intention is criminal. I don't know law-abiding citizens walking down the street with a gun because they just happen to want to walk down the street with a gun. People that have guns are using them to commit crimes, and then they know that they can get away with it because nobody's going to enforce it. I can plead down to a different charge. No, stop the plea bargaining. If you got a gun and you commit a crime, then you do your time. That's what I'm saying. It's not about the laws. It's about implementing the penalties of breaking the laws. Thank you.
No, I understand and I agree with you on that.
I don't think anyone should carry an AK-47. You're not in Iraq, you're not in Afghanistan, there's no war going on here. So for any citizen, criminal or law-abiding, you don't need an AK-47. Those weapons are made to do just what they did, kill. Not injure, not wound, not maim, not slow you down, but kill. And that's exactly what it did. Blew our children to pieces. Wide open. So I don't feel anyone needs an AK-47. You're not a Marine, you're not an Army combat engineer, you're not in a war somewhere. So no one should have an AK-47. And as far as the laws that they want to, the bill they want to pass, making it even easier for people to get a weapon is ridiculous. And I feel like after all of this, I mean, I know that bill was already in place, but I just think it's kind of insulting to even think that it makes any sense to push a bill like that.
And I want to say on top of that, I agree with the parents about AK-47s. You don't hunt with an AK-47. So what do you need it for? That's just for rich people who support the NRA to get richer off our children dying. However, I believe if you change the mentality of the people in our community, you can dump 1 million AK-47s anywhere in the city and the children won't use them. If you give people opportunities in our city, you can dump 1 million AK-47s in the community and people won't use them. So,
I agree with
so
you.
that's what we need to focus on more than anything, giving people opportunities and hope, and then the children won't be using these guns.
I agree with you, and I think that's important. It's just the immediate question of this week. Congress may be voting on repealing our gun laws, and we do prohibit assault weapons. Even though, I mean, they had them, it was illegal. But if Congress gets its way, they'll be legal.
And it's ridiculous. And it's really
Their children not in the streets, so they don't have to experience it. So you know.
exactly.
Yeah.
They don't care. If
Somebody from Utah.
if one got shot with a BB gun in Georgetown, I'm sure the city would be on siege. It would be, the National Guards would be called in. But you think because these are little black children, and you think that because we live in Ward 8, we're so uneducated and animalistic. That's not the case. I'm very articulate. So are my neighbors. So are these children, or were. These children were. They had bright futures. All of their families. We speak well. We want the same things in our community that everyone else wants in theirs. We want nice, clean streets. We want good education, safe schools, nice schools. We want community centers. We want the Boys and Girl Clubs back. We want to be able to picnic in the park. We'd like nice dining. We'd like some place to shop. I don't think it makes sense to you buy a home in Washington, D.C., and I have to drive to Virginia or PG County or Montgomery County to shop. So it's a lot of things that need to be revamped.
Thank you each of you for your testimony. Wahar Abraham and Diane Howe and Quentin Wade. Is Diane Howe here?
I'm Norman Williams, I'm his father.
Okay. Is she going to be?
I'm sitting in for Diane, she's just too distraught to come here.
Okay.
I'm Norman Williams, I'm Jordan Howe's father.
Okay. You're Norman Williams.
I'm Jordan Howe's father, that's correct.
Okay.
The
And
young man that was murdered March 22nd, 2010.
is Quentin Wade here?
I don't know them.
Is Kim Harrison here?
Yes, my sister's here.
If you'd come forward. Mr. Abraham, why don't we begin with you?
I'll defer to the father.
Okay, Mr. Williams? Make sure the microphone's on, please, and pull it closer to you.
I am Norman Williams, the proud father of Jordan D. Howe, who was killed March the 22nd, 2010, while sitting in a car in front of his mom's apartment building. Jordan was a very kind and friendly person who everybody loved by so many people. He was a high school student working toward getting his diploma. Jordan was sought by many coaches